Brooklyn Nets owner Joe Tsai came out on Twitter yesterday and essentially stated his stance on the Kevin Durant trade ultimatum he posted in their previous meeting last week. And essentially, it doesn't look good for Kevin Durant's future with the Brooklyn Nets, and Shams of The Athletic also name-dropped the Toronto Raptors as a potential destination. So I'll break down all the new information we have on the Kevin Durant trade news. Additionally, we got some more footage of Fred VanVleet out there and Rico Hines, and my goodness, he's looking back, he's looking healthy, ready to go to be an all-star as well. We got to cover some other Raptors news, so a bunch of stuff we're diving into. Without further ado, let's dive straight into it. Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, breaking down the latest Toronto Raptors news. And we got a lot of crazy stuff to dive into, so let's jump right in the mix of it. And the first thing we're discussing is the Nets owner indicates the Nets will trade Kevin Durant. And that's really the only way to put this. Some people might be saying it's a stretch, but I don't think so when you look at everything in context. Now, just to summarize what we broke down yesterday, Kevin Durant essentially had a meeting with Joe Tsai, the owner of the Brooklyn Nets, and said, it's either me or it's the coach and the GM of the Brooklyn Nets that have to go, right? So he says, you can either, he's not happy with the direction the organization has went in, and he went to billionaire owner Joe Tsai and said, you either fire Steve Nash, the coach that I handpicked, the GM that essentially dragged this franchise out of the mud following that trade where they gave up all their future assets for a super old Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, right? Fire those two guys and keep me, or trade me as things have went along. And this is a little bit deeper. I don't think it's just that, right? If Kevin Durant really wanted the coach gone and the GM fired, he would have just said that at the start of the offseason and said, oh, everything's hunky-dory. But this is more of a power play by Kevin Durant because he knows that Joe Tsai won't go through with this just because he's getting bullied by an NBA superstar. So he's doing this as a leverage, a power play to essentially make the environment more toxic than it already is with the Brooklyn Nets, and ensuring he's going to get traded, because surely now with Steve Nash and Sean Marks there, I don't think they're bringing Kevin Durant back to play on the court to be in an organization alongside where the upper management is essentially thrown to the side as they have been all the past couple years. So that's what we knew yesterday. But then Joe Tsai, he was quick to respond to all of the reports that came out surrounding KD, and he had this tweet to say out there on his personal Twitter account. And he said, our front office and coaching staff have my support. We will make decisions in the best interest of the Brooklyn Nets. Now, how can this be interpreted? Given the context I just showed from Shams of The Athletic, given everything that's been broken down, this is essentially Joe Tsai saying, Kevin Durant, to heck with your ultimatum. It's a bunch of nonsense. We're not following through with it. I trust our front office and just the Brooklyn Nets organization in general, because what has happened this entire year? The superstars in Brooklyn, they've essentially torn down all the structure that was built up in those years following the departure of Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Brook Lopez, that whole core group they had, a decade ago, right? They tore down all that infrastructure, the young talent that they had on that squad, the winning coach, the winning atmosphere, and they said, hey, let's just run the show. We don't need a coach, Kyrie, Kevin Durant. We can just run ISOs and march our way to a championship. And let's trade all of our future assets for James Harden, right? That's what KD and Kyrie essentially did with the Brooklyn Nets sort of squad. They tore it down, and Joe Tsai saying, this isn't happening. This is not happening anymore. I'm putting my foot down. He said it at the end of this year's press conference, or the end of postseason press conferences the Brooklyn Nets had. Said, I'd much rather have, a 40-win team than what we had going on for this last season. So it's a dicey situation. I called this 3 weeks back. The ownership and Kevin Durant, that's the reason this trade is going to happen. That's the reason this trade's going through. Now, I've seen a couple of people read into this a certain way. I don't believe it's the right way to read into it, but they said in the best interest of the Brooklyn Nets, so maybe that's a subliminal saying, oh, Kevin Durant, you're still a good player. I don't care about your trade request. Maybe we'll keep you on the roster. But just given all the animosity that's gone on between these two guys, these two gentlemen, I don't expect a world where KD is going to be back on the Brooklyn Nets. So that means the questers out there, the GMs around the NBA that have been hunted for KD, they are back on the bandwagon, trying to get the acquire KD without trading away Scottie Barnes. And I know, especially with the drama that's gone on, and KD's left a sour taste, not just in Brooklyn Nets fans' mouths, but NBA fans in general, because it's pretty immature what he's doing out there. He joined a Brooklyn Nets team for their culture specifically. He handpicked the coach himself, and now he wants all of them fired and all that sort of stuff. It's a bit messy, and even me, knowing all his talent, knowing I want to bring him in here, assuming we don't have a big asking price, I can see why Raptors fans would be distasted by potentially acquiring Kevin Durant. However, Shams of The Athletic still brought up that the Boston Celtics, Toronto Raptors, and Miami Heat remain the most significant candidates to acquire Kevin Durant. Now, that's essentially where we're at. Obviously, following the DeAndre Ayton signing with the Phoenix Suns, they were taken out of the mix, but it's really been the Celtics, the Heat, and the Raptors as the three teams rumored to acquire this guy for the past month or so. So, could the Raptors actually acquire him? And I don't think there's a world where we trade Scottie Barnes. Scottie Barnes himself came out and said that Masai Ujiri said no Scottie Barnes in a deal to him from day one. No, he's off the table. Stop bringing that up. Pascal Siakam, I think, is off the table himself as well, right? It doesn't make sense to bring in Kevin Durant and get rid of a Siakam guy, right? Like, Siakam's the perfect proven championship number 2 on a team. I don't expect him to be dealt in a package. So where do the Raptors go from here, right? What a trade machines would Masai Ujiri potentially cook up for the Brooklyn Nets? And ESPN essentially proposed a trade of Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby, and 4 firsts, along with our guy Thaddeus Young. I haven't seen him talked about much in potential deals, but he was thrown in as an addition to a potential trade that ESPN just disclosed. But I'm saying OGs to OGs getting traded alongside all of those draft picks, like 4 first-round picks on top of those 2 guys. The price is getting lower and lower. The KD acquisition is getting less and less attractive for myself. And I know I'm an OG homer. I love our star boy, Gary Trent Jr. But if we're giving up those 2 guys, the young potential that they show, I know they're not close to the level of Kevin Durant at this point, but I'm reluctant to do it, man. I'm watching all these highlight films, and I'm buying into the propaganda. I'm buying into it. And yes, OG Anunoby's dealt with series time off, right? Has had injuries that have taken him out for large chunks of the season. So the injury risks, the injury worries do concern me with OG Anunoby. Gary Trent Jr.'s contract situation makes me more lenient to give him up. So if push came to shove and the deal was on the table, I'm probably accepting Gary, OG, and a couple picks, but 4 picks on top of it. I know the Gobert trade has inflated the trade market, right? And all that sort of stuff, but 4 picks is still 4 picks. That's a lot of assets going out. And obviously James Harden he's traded for 4 picks and 3 pick swaps. So you could technically count that as 7, but pick swaps aren't really draft picks. So I don't know. Let me know what trades you do at this point in the season for Kevin Durant. And we've spent enough time on KD so much throughout this year, but I'd like to hear where people are sort of at right now, because my excitement, my juice for potentially trading for KD has waned over the course of this season. And someone also asked, before we segue completely, for the young socialite. I'll play the young socialite animation next, but people are asking for a young socialite animation in the comments, so I'll move on. Let's stick with the pace. Let's keep the pace up in this video. And the next thing we're discussing is Freddy All-Star being back. Now, Fred VanVleet had a cold finish to last offseason just due to injuries, and the fact he was playing essentially 45 minutes a night, doing a carry job while Siakam was essentially coming back into his own for the first half of the season last year, and obviously had a tremendous start to the year, but his performance waned over the course of the season, as I said, due to knee injuries, and obviously dealt with some serious stuff heading into the playoffs, which eventually took him out of the playoffs. So some Raptors fans, the people that forgot about the first half of the season, are a little bit down on Fred VanVleet, but some footage of Rico Hines should get the spirits back up. I'll throw it on the screen here now. And as we know, Fred VanVleet's one of the most elite shooters in the NBA. Has advanced stats show top talent in 3-point off the dribble shooting, of set 3-point shooting. But look at this assist. Look at this dime dropping he's throwing to Christian Koloko here. Right, he's setting the table. He's spoon feeding the Raptors' new big man, kicking out to Siakam there. And I won't even dive into Siakam's smooth jump shot on that play. But the 2-man game between Fred VanVleet and Koloko looks really effective. And I'm saying it. I didn't think it would happen necessarily following in the NBA draft, just given it's a 2nd-round pick. But Koloko, look at those finishes. Look at those rolls he's having with Fred VanVleet diving at the rim. And Fred was a solid facilitator for the team last season, right? He had a solid number of assists, didn't turn over the ball too much, right? Fred VanVleet was an effective facilitator for the squad this previous season. But there wasn't a even though Marc Gasol wasn't much of a scorer, right? He's a former all-star, a skilled big man that Lowry and those guys could feed the ball in the post to, but a very effective roller on the Toronto Raptors for many seasons with Serge Ibaka. And the Raptors really didn't have that type of guy to roll the rim with the size that can finish, can dunk, can make those little post hooks. And at least in the minor footage we're getting from the Rico Hines runs, Christian Coloco's looking like that guy already, and paired alongside the jumper being pretty effective, and also Precious Achiuwa coming into his own, hopefully this season more so. Second half of the year, he was pretty effective in the pick and roll, but having Fred VanVleet being able to throw those dimes, be able to act as more of a creator rather than a score first player, that's going to be huge for Fred VanVleet's game. Because one, there won't be too much of a load for him, to score every possession when the offense is in a rut, right? Hopefully we'll have guys like OG Anunoby, Siakam. Well, Siakam wasn't very healthy at the start of last season. That's why Fred had to do it. But OG taking a step up, Scottie taking a step up, Precious taking a step up for the scoring ability, creating off the dribble. But we also have roller guys that Fred VanVleet can say, oh, if I'm creating, I don't necessarily have to drive into a bunch of guys, make a bunch of handles, and hit a step back three, or hit a shot where he's bullying his way to the rim using his size as a guard, even though it's not height, using his strength. Not the greatest finisher in the world by any means. Even though that clip went on, he did make a few of those solid touches around the rim. But Fred VanVleet, just having more talent around him and the willingness to create for others is going to be huge for his development, his growth into next season. And as our starting point guard with an improving young roster, that's going to be huge to see him, take his next step in his evolution as the Raptors point guard. And it looks, from the Rico Hines runs, it's looking like we're going to see another year of Freddy All-Star. So love to see that. You love seeing that from this. I encourage everyone to check out the full highlight reels on Rico Hines' YouTube channel, because lots of cool stuff there. So next thing we're diving into is the Toronto Raptors maintaining a serious home court advantage. Now, last season, obviously, just given the border restrictions, unvaccinated players were unable to play in Toronto, play in Canada, as they weren't able to cross the border. Now, some people were roasting Canada. I think Joe Rogan came out and called this a communist country. Well, the rules are the same for the states. So if a Toronto Raptors player was unvaxxed, they wouldn't be able to go to the States, but all Toronto Raptors players are vaxxed, so there's all this drama surrounding that. But I'm just bringing up how this is still going to be a factor that comes into play, especially come postseason next year. Lots of drama surrounding Matisse Thybulle, potentially a Jaylen Brown. Al Horford confirmed he did get the shot, so he would have been able to play if the Raptors faced off against them in the second round conference finals or whatnot. But something to factor in for the Toronto Raptors. And if we do play the Sixers, that is a minor loss for them. But definitely the Celtics going forward, or the Nets if a KD trade ends up going down between those two squads, right? Something to look out for. I think Beal might not be vaxxed either. So some drama surrounding that, but that's going to be a factor coming into play next season. And the final thing we're discussing is Scottie Barnes spotted down in Utah. Now, I had one person reach out, say, does this mean a Donovan Mitchell for Scottie Barnes deal has gone down? No, 0% chance that's not happening. But I have seen Utah Jazz fans come out, and this is the story. This was posted to Scottie Barnes' story. And on Utah Jazz Reddit, it was titled with the caption, fined for tampering or something. They said, Scottie Barnes going down there to tamper to acquire Donovan Mitchell, because obviously this offseason has been littered with superstar trade rumors to the Toronto Raptors. But he was down there to play in a Pro-Am game. There's no drama to be had about it. He's just posting pictures of those cool-looking mountains, and honestly, I'd be posting that pic too. Maybe I'd get the traffic light out of the way, but maybe didn't get a chance to pull to the side of the road and get a cool pic. But, Scottie Barnes out here taking some photos. Nothing else. Not going down tampering for Utah Jazz players. He's down there playing a Pro-Am game. So that's the only drama takeaway from it. But let me know what you guys think on all this Toronto Raptors news. You guys are the best for making this far. Check out the Instagram, the TikTok, the Twitter, all that cool stuff. Anyways, what do you guys, especially on the Kevin Durant stuff? Because at this point, I've waned away. Obviously broke it down yesterday, but from breaking down every single KD rumor. But let me know what you guys think about Kevin Durant becoming traded. And as said, I forgot to plug in this video again, but subscribe to the channel, helps us out big time. Anyways, enough of me rambling. You guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.